Detective Jones Bones had built his legend brick by brick. In 15 years on the force, he had done what others couldn't, closed cases so cold they turned to ice. He was the man with answers, the one who never blinked when the trail went dark. His colleagues called him invincible. The papers called him a genius. But reputations are glass. They only look unbreakable until the right stone hits them. And on a rainy Tuesday night, the kind of night no one remembers until it becomes unforgettable, Jones Bones would meet the stone. A criminal unlike any he had faced. A ghost with a voice. A man who would not just evade him, but play him. It began, not with a crime scene, but with a phone call. At exactly 2:07 a.m., the 911 call center logged it. A voice, male, low, unhurried. The kind of voice that belonged to someone utterly in control. I killed someone. There was no panic in it, no cracked edge of guilt. No sound of chaos behind him. Just the statement, delivered as casually as if he were ordering coffee. Within minutes, the alert reached Bones's desk. He was at the precinct that night, as he often was, hunched over files, cigarette smoldering in an ashtray, his tie loosened, his coat hanging off the back of his chair like a weary ghost. When the call was flagged, his eyes sharpened. Another confession? Another crank? He'd heard them before. But something in the operator's notes made him pause. Caller calm. Too calm. Exact address given. Refused to identify. Bones stubbed out the cigarette and reached for his coat. He didn't know it yet, but this was the beginning. The start of the one case that would unmake him. Bones stepped out, lighting a fresh cigarette, the ember glowing like a tiny furnace against the darkness. He walked beneath the tape without a word. Everyone knew who he was. No rookie dared stop him. Inside, the scene hit him. A single bulb swung above, throwing shadows across the walls. And in the middle of the concrete floor lay the victim. A man. Mid-30s. Well-dressed, or at least he had been before death ruined the picture. His shirt was soaked through with rainwater and blood. His eyes were open, glassy, staring at nothing. But it wasn't the body that made Bones pause, it was the staging. The victim had been placed, not dropped. Arms folded neatly across the chest. Shoes polished. Wallet and ID tucked into the breast pocket. As if someone had arranged him. Beside him, on the floor, lay a white playing card, the ace of spades. Its surface dry, as though it had been carefully shielded from the rain until the last moment. Bones crouched beside the body, ignoring the murmurs of the uniformed officers. He flicked ash onto the wet ground and leaned closer. The killer hadn't just murdered. He had left a signature. And signatures meant intent. Bones pulled on gloves, opened the victim's jacket, checked the inside. No struggle marks. No defensive wounds on the hands. Whoever killed him had control from the start. "Sir," a young officer approached, notebook trembling slightly in his grip. "Victim's name is Richard Hale. 36. Local accountant. Lives 2 blocks over. No priors, no connections to gangs or organized crime. Wife's been called." Bones didn't answer right away. He studied the ace of spades again, then glanced toward the entrance. "Any witnesses?" "None so far. Neighbors say they heard nothing. Cameras on the block are either broken or conveniently turned the wrong way." Conveniently. Bones let the word settle in his mind. This wasn't just murder. This was theater. He scanned the ground outside, crouched again. Mud, tire tracks, blurred by rain. Still, he could tell a vehicle had been here recently. Heavy tread. Not a sedan. Something larger. He filed it away. Back inside, the forensics team began photographing every angle. Bones slipped his hands into his pockets, listening. Not to the scene, He'd absorbed that already, but to the silence. Silence could be louder than screams. And this silence told him the killer had planned everything. Chosen the location. Controlled the time. Controlled the body. Even controlled the message. Which meant he hadn't just chosen the victim, he'd chosen Bones, too. By sunrise, Bones was at the morgue. Richard Hale lay on the stainless steel table, his skin waxy under fluorescent lights. The coroner, Dr. Evelyn Marks, adjusted her glasses and nodded as Bones stepped in. Cause of death? Bones asked. Single puncture wound to the chest. Blade entered between the ribs, clean, straight to the heart. Dr. Marks hesitated, then pointed to a faint mark on the victim's forearm. Injection site, maybe. Could be sedative. Bones nodded once, then turned and walked out. The report confirmed his instinct. Hale hadn't been killed in a struggle. He'd been prepared. Sedated. Arranged. Back at the precinct, Bones gathered his team. Files and photos spread across the table. Richard Hale, Bones began. Accountant. 36. No priors. No debts. Wife says he came home from work, ate dinner, went out for a walk. Never came back. Detective Alvarez leaned back in her chair. Random victim? Bones shook his head. No such thing. Not with the ace of spades. Officer Layham frowned. Could be a signature. Could be a gang thing. Bones looked at him, a flicker of disdain in his eyes. Then where's the message? Where's the spray paint? The call to the news? Gangs want noise. This isn't noise. This is theater. Alvarez tapped her pen against the table. So what's the play? Bones exhaled smoke. That's what we're here to find out. The first 2 days blurred into interviews. Bones went to Hale's office, sifted through drawers and hard drives. Nothing unusual. Numbers, spreadsheets, client files. A life of routine. He spoke to co-workers. They described Hale as quiet, diligent, polite. No enemies, no affairs, no debts. Just a man. At the Hale residence, Bones sat across from the widow. She wept softly, clutching a tissue. He was ordinary, she said. He never stayed out late. Never lied to me. Why would anyone? Bones didn't answer. He scanned the living room instead. Family photos. Vacations. Birthdays. All painfully normal. Too normal. On Wednesday, he pulled security footage from the surrounding blocks. Hours of grainy clips, timestamps blurred by rain. He sat in the dark precinct viewing room, rewinding, fast-forwarding. There. A shadow. A figure moving near the warehouse around midnight. Hat pulled low, shoulders hunched. Not clear enough to identify. Just clear enough to taunt. Bones replayed it a dozen times. Each time, the figure seemed to look back at the camera. Straight at him. By Thursday, the press had caught wind. Headlines read, Accountant found dead in warehouse. Ace of spades left behind. Reporters crowded the precinct steps, shouting questions. Is this a serial killer? Is the ace a calling card? Does the department have leads? Bones ignored them, his jaw tight. Inside, Alvarez approached him. You think the killer wanted this? The coverage. The attention. Bones stubbed out his cigarette. He didn't just want it. He planned it. The call, the card, the body. Detective, it's him again. The operator's voice cracked through the quiet of Bones's office, cutting through the haze of cigarette smoke. His eyes narrowed, hand tightening around the receiver. Then the same voice, calm, controlled, the faintest trace of amusement beneath it. I killed someone else. Bones stood abruptly, chair scraping the floor. Where? The caller chuckled softly. You'll find them. You always do. That's what makes this fun. Listen to me, you son of a... But the line went dead. Bones slammed the phone down, grabbed his coat, and barked into the hallway. It didn't take long. At 3:41 a.m., a patrol car reported a body. Different location. Different setup. Same calling card. Bones arrived to flashing lights and uniformed officers cordoning off an alley behind a shuttered bakery. Rain soaked the cracked pavement, the smell of stale bread mingling with the metallic tang of blood. The victim, a young woman this time. Early 20s. Brunette hair fanned across the wet ground. No signs of a struggle. No defensive wounds. A thin puncture wound to the chest, surgical and precise. And there it was again, laid neatly on her chest. The ace of spades. Bones crouched, studying the placement. But this time, something new. On the woman's wrist, faintly visible in the rain, was a smudge of black ink. Letters blurred, half washed away. Bones squinted, trying to read. Jones. The detective froze. His name. It was faint, almost erased, but deliberate. The killer hadn't just left a card this time. He'd left a message. By sunrise, the news vans had doubled outside the precinct. 2 murders in 1 week, both with the same calling card? The press was eating it alive. Headlines blared, "Ace of Spades killer strikes again." Reporters swarmed. Microphones thrust forward. Detective Bones, is this a serial killer? Do you have a suspect? Are the citizens of this city safe? Inside, Bones stared at the ace of spades pinned to the evidence board. Now there were 2. Side by side. 2 victims. 1 week apart. And the second one carried his name. The next 7 days were a blur of dead ends and restless nights. Bones followed every possible lead. He interrogated Hale's co-workers again. Nothing. He interviewed Laura Green's classmates and professors. He traced the sedative used in both victims, obscure, lab-grade, not something available over the counter. He checked hospitals, universities, private labs. Too many potential sources. Too many dead ends. He ran the tire tread from the first scene against databases. No match. Everywhere he turned, the killer was ahead of him. Every clue dissolved like smoke in his hands. And all the while, the city whispered about the ace of spades killer. Bones could feel it, the killer wasn't hiding. He was performing. Performing for him. By the following Tuesday, Bones had barely slept. His office reeked of smoke and stale coffee. The evidence board was crowded with photos, maps, notes connected by red string. 2 victims. 1 week apart. Both at 2 a.m. Both with the ace. The clock ticked past 1:58 a.m. Bones sat at his desk, cigarette trembling between his fingers. Waiting. 2:07 a.m. The phone rang. Bones's hand shot out. Talk. The voice again. Smooth. Calm. Almost mocking. Tuesday, detective. My favorite night. Bones gritted his teeth. You don't control this city. Oh, but I do. And you know what I love most. The killer's chuckle was low, steady. Watching you chase shadows. Watching you fail. Where are you? Bones demanded. Closer than you think. The line clicked dead. Moments later, the radio crackled in dispatch, Unit 14, possible homicide reported. Abandoned church on 9th. Bones's cigarette dropped to the floor. Another body. Another ace. The game had only just begun. The rain hadn't stopped all night. By the time Detective Jones' Bones reached the abandoned church on 9th, the cobblestones outside glistened like oil, reflecting the red and blue lights of squad cars. The church was a skeleton, windows shattered, doors rotted, a roof sagging under years of neglect. Crows nested in the bell tower, their cries mixing with the radio chatter of uniforms outside. His flashlight cut through the dark, revealing crumbling pews, broken hymnals, and graffiti sprayed across holy walls. And at the altar, laid out with ritualistic care, was the body. Male. Late 30s. Suit and tie, shoes polished. But his throat was slit ear to ear, blood pooled across the stone floor like a crimson offering. On his chest, of course, rested the ace of spades. But this time, there was more. His eyes narrowed as he read. "You're chasing me in the wrong direction." Beneath the words was a hand-drawn map. Crude, lines shaky. An X marked somewhere in the city's north side. Alvarez, standing at his shoulder, frowned. The map pointed to an abandoned warehouse near the docks. Inside, they found evidence. Boxes of syringes. Blooded gloves. A burner phone. Even a notebook scrawled with rambling phrases, "The king must fall. Aces are death. Bones bleeds like all men." The press was going to eat this alive. But Bones didn't celebrate. None of it felt right. The handwriting was too sloppy. The evidence too obvious. It was all planted. He said it aloud, pacing the warehouse floor. "He wanted us to find this. He's laughing at us." Alvarez sighed. "Then what do we do?" Bones lit a cigarette, exhaled slowly. Late Thursday night, in the precinct's war room, Bones stood before the evidence board. 3 victims. 3 cards. All Tuesdays at 2:07 a.m. A pattern. A clockwork rhythm. But there was something else. Each victim had lived within a mile of one another. Not exact, but close. Drawn on the map, the points formed a crooked line across the city. And the line was heading somewhere. Bones traced it with his finger. Alvarez leaned in. "Where's it pointing?" Bones's cigarette burned low between his lips. His eyes narrowed. The courthouse. Bones doubled patrols around the courthouse. Unmarked units. Snipers on rooftops. Metal detectors sweeping every entry. For 4 nights straight, he barely slept, parked in an unmarked sedan across from the courthouse, watching, waiting. And then, on Sunday night, his phone buzzed. Unknown number. He answered. The voice? Calm. Smooth. Amused. "You think like a soldier, detective. But I'm not fighting a war. I'm writing a symphony." Bones's hand tightened around the phone. "You won't get another body." "Oh, I already have one." The voice chuckled. "Check your rearview mirror." Bones twisted. Across the street, taped to a lamp post, was a photo. A photo of him. Sitting in his car. Watching the courthouse. His stomach dropped. The killer wasn't planning to strike the courthouse. He'd used it to bait Bones into watching while he watched back. The game wasn't hunter versus prey. It was cat versus cat. Monday night settled over the city with the kind of quiet that didn't trust itself. Bones had been in his office for 16 hours straight, his shirt wrinkled, tie discarded, the faint smell of cigarettes and black coffee hanging in the air like armor. Then the call came. Dispatch reported screams from a residential block on the east side. Multiple neighbors had called in, saying they'd heard a man shouting, begging for his life. A gunshot. Then silence. Bones was out the door before Alvarez could grab his coat. The house was a rundown 2-story at the edge of the block. Curtains drawn, lights off. The front door stood half open, swaying slightly in the wind. Officers stood outside, guns raised, waiting for Bones. He pushed inside. The smell hit him first, iron and rot, the stink of fresh blood. His flashlight beam cut across the living room, and there it was. A body. Male. Bound to a chair with duct tape, head slumped forward, blood soaking his shirt. A bullet hole straight through the chest. Bones reached out and touched the blood on the shirt. Still wet. But not warm. He rubbed his fingers together. The texture was wrong. "Alvarez," he said slowly, standing. "Get forensics in here. Right now." An hour later, the answer came back. The blood? Pig's blood, bought from a butcher. The bullet wound? A prosthetic, glued on. The body? A medical cadaver, stolen from a university lab. Bones felt the weight of the realization like a punch to the ribs. The killer had staged it all. The screams, the gunshot, the body, every last detail designed to be discovered. To waste their time. And it had worked. By the time they pieced it together, it was almost 2 a.m. Bones's pulse thundered. "Shut it down," he barked. "This is a diversion, he's out there right now." At exactly 2:07 a.m., the city's emergency lines lit up again. A call came in from a security guard at the old municipal library on 14th. He'd found a man dead in the archives. By the time Bones arrived, his lungs burning from the sprint up the marble steps, the guard was waiting by the door, pale as chalk. Inside, the scene was surgical. The victim, female, late 20s, was laid out across a long oak table. Her wrists crossed over her chest. Eyes closed, lips sewn shut. A Queen of Hearts card pinned delicately to her blouse. No forced entry. No sign of a struggle. Cameras disabled 30 minutes before the murder. The killer had been here. Moving freely. Unseen. Bones's hands curled into fists. Alvarez whispered, "He played us. He had this ready the whole time." Bones didn't answer. He couldn't. Because deep down, he knew Alvarez was right. Bones's phone buzzed in his pocket. An unknown number. He answered. That voice again, calm and unhurried. "Tuesday, 2:07 a.m., detective. Don't be late for the next one." The line went dead. The precinct felt different after the library murder. It wasn't just another case file. It was a wound, and everyone knew it. Detective Jones Bones hadn't slept. His eyes were ringed in grey shadows, his desk littered with coffee cups, cigarette butts, and half-scribbled notes. On the wall above him, crime scene photos from both murders were pinned in jagged rows. Tuesday, 2:07 a.m. The repetition taunted him. For 15 years, Bones had hunted killers like wolves. He had always been faster, sharper, relentless. But now? Now he was chasing a phantom who moved like smoke and laughed in his ear. His colleagues whispered. Some said Bones had finally met his match. Others said he was slipping. But no one dared say it too loudly, not when Bones was in the room. By Thursday, Bones was obsessed with the fake murder. He walked the block where neighbors had reported screams again and again. Talked to every witness. An old woman swore she'd heard 3 distinct voices, 2 men, 1 begging. A young man said he saw shadows moving inside the house. But the house had been empty. The cadaver staged. The sounds? Bones stood in the middle of the living room, replaying it in his head. Then he noticed something he hadn't before, a small black circle on the floor, near the window. His chest tightened. The killer hadn't just staged the body. He had staged everything. Pre-recorded the screams, the begging, the gunshot, and played it loud enough for the neighbors to panic. All while setting up the cadaver as bait. Friday bled into Saturday. Every lead broke. Forensics couldn't trace the prosthetic, bullet wound. The pig's blood had been bought anonymously, cash only. The cadaver had indeed come from a university lab, but all cameras around the storage facility had been disabled the night before the murder. The library crime scene wasn't better. Cameras offline. Doors unlocked. Guard knocked out cold in the bathroom 30 minutes before the killing. Everywhere Bones turned, the killer was there first. Anticipating him. Mocking him. Bones began to question everything. His instincts, once razor-sharp, now cut against him. Was the killer someone inside the force? Someone feeding him information? He started looking at his colleagues differently. Alvarez. The captain. Even the forensics techs. Who could he trust? At night, Bones found himself staring at the wall of evidence until the faces blurred together. Sometimes, in the silence, he could hear that voice again. Calm. Smooth. Smiling. Tuesday, 2:07 a.m., Detective. By Sunday, Bones was unraveling. He smashed a coffee mug against the wall when Alvarez suggested pulling in the FBI. He ripped down half his evidence board, then put it back up in the same order, as if hoping it would suddenly make sense. Colleagues avoided him now. The invincible detective was coming apart, and the whole department could see it. But Bones didn't care. He drove through the city at night, following his gut. Empty alleys. Old buildings. Parks where shadows moved strangely. He convinced himself the killer was there, watching, breathing just out of sight. Once, he even stopped in the rain, shouting into the dark. "Come out! Face me!" But the city only answered with silence. Monday night turned into Tuesday morning. Bones sat alone in his car outside the library, engine off, rain pattering on the windshield. He refused to be fooled again. If the killer wanted him here at 2:07 a.m., he would be waiting. He checked his watch. 2:05. His heart pounded. He gripped the steering wheel. 2:06. He held his breath. 2:07. Then his phone buzzed. Unknown number. He answered, his throat dry. The voice purred. "Detective, you're at the wrong place." Bones froze. Sirens wailed in the distance. Red and blue lights flared somewhere else in the city. And Bones realized, with a sickening drop in his gut, it had started again. Like and subscribe for the part 2 of this crime series.